Hey you guys, and welcome to my channel. In this video I'll be showing you how to make this cool optical illusion cutting board. Now this is my second time making this. First one didn't go quite as well. And how did I mess up the first time? Well, in this video I'll show you so you can learn from my mistakes. The wood that I use for this cutting board is walnut, beech and teak. Now it doesn't really matter what kind of wood you use as long as you've got a dark one, a light one and something in between. Now pay attention because this is important, or else your board would look like this with no optical illusion whatsoever. So how can you avoid making the same mistakes that I did? Well, the critical thing about this build is the small strips that goes vertical and horizontal. And color wise, these strips have to be in between the dark and the light, or else the illusion will not happen. Well, let's start the build. The thin strips, we'll wait a bit with those. Let's move on to the dark one and the light one. We need 6 pieces of each. They'll all be 35 by 38 millimeters and 38 centimeters long. All the pieces have been cut and planed and we're ready for the first glue up. Now remember, we made these 35 by 38, so we need to push them through a planer to plane them down to 35. Now my planer can't take the whole width of 45 centimeters, so I need to do a glue up in 2 pieces. But if you do have a belt sander or planer that can take the full width, simply just do one glue up now. I ran the 2 parts through my planer down to 35 mil. Now I want to take my time with this glue up to make sure that the board is actually straight. So I'm using a lot of these, clamping top and bottom to make sure that it's 100% straight. Next up, I'll show you how to make the end grain strips. I've got a piece of teak here that's about 100 mil by 45 mil. It doesn't really matter what dimension it is, as long as it's 100% square. The cuts that I'm doing here are 40 mil thick, same as the thickness of the cutting board. These are the pieces that we just cut on the circular saw. And to make the end grain strips, we simply just flip these around like this, and we glue them together into one piece. Now to do this, I will put these 2 sides on and one on the top, and then clamp it all together. This will make one solid piece that I can cut my strips out of. The glue up of the 2 boards turned out pretty good. I just need to do a bit of sanding and I'll be ready for the crosscut. Same goes for this one. Glue up is done and just need to sand it off, and then that will also be ready for the crosscut. Right, let's do the crosscuts. I've got my height set, or width set on 40 mil. This will be the height of my cutting board. I usually make my cutting boards between 35 and 40 mil thickness. You can easily make it thicker. Just remember you need to add a bit more material if you make them thicker. First cut is just to get rid of this uneven edge right here. Now let's do the thin strips in end grain, and hopefully I should be able to get 7 pieces out of this or more. All the bits and pieces are cut for the final glue up, and let's see if we can make the optical illusion happen. The first thing we need to talk about is the overlap. Now my width of my blocks here are 35 millimeters. Now I've made a few tests to see which measurement would be the best to make the illusion happen. And I came up with 1/3 of the 35, which is about 12 mil, or 1/4 of the 35 mil, which is about 9mm. And my conclusion is that it doesn't really matter, as long as it's somewhere in between. You can actually go a bit higher as well, but I've made mine 10mm. The only thing that is important is that you keep the same 10mm all the way across. It has to be the same measurement. Well, how do we do the overlap? Well, there are two ways to do it. Let me show you the first way. I'll simply take every other piece and move out to the line, like this. And that's it, fairly easy. Now the second option is a bit more advanced, if you can say that. I'll start with the first one, move it out. Second one, I'm not gonna move. Third one, I'll move it the opposite direction. And also 10mm. Won't move. I'll move this that way. Won't move. This one, I'll move that way. So something like this. Both options should do the trick. Now if you do go with this option, I recommend that you make a line all the way down on the lighter pieces, like this. So when you start your glue up, you simply just have to align this, and you can actually make two of them. That will So when we do the final glue up, you simply just align the two, and then you're good to go. Now if you do go with option 1, I do have a little trick for you that would help with the glue up. I've cut these small pieces. Now these are not 10mm as I showed, these are just random piece that I have, but you get the idea. So you place that here on these ends. Now the cool trick about this is that you simply take two pieces with tape on, and when you glue them up, you simply just press them together and you got the exact overlap on all of them. You don't need to muck around when you start the glue up. So this will be a pretty cool trick. Now while I do the final glue up, you can have a look at option 1 and option 2, and you can see how the illusion comes to life. I'll see you after the glue up. I didn't really have any issues with the glue up. Everything turned out pretty good, and the two lines that we made helped me to get everything in the right place. Now before I start flattening the board, I've cut off a piece at the end here, but this is only to glue on another piece that isn't end grain, sort of like a sacrifice piece. And this is a safety issue. If you don't glue on your sacrifice piece, there's a high chance of the board splitting when you put end grain through the planer. And the only safe planer to use is a planer with a spiral cutter head. And even then, it's still a little bit dangerous, so be careful guys. The first thing I'll do is run the board over my jointer. And after that, I'll run the board through my planer. And we end up with a pretty nice flat surface. Next step now is to cut off the sacrifice piece and cut this part off as well. And then I'll do an angle cut on 20 degrees on all four sides. Final step before sanding is just to round off the edges all the way around. Next step will be the sanding. I'm not going to show you that because it's really boring, but I'll start with a grid 80, 100, 120, 150 and end off with 180. And now for the best part of the build, the mineral oil. The board is nice and dry, and there's just one more thing that we need to do before completion. I'll give it a little bit of beeswax. Alright you guys, the board is finished and I'm quite happy with the result. Now if you did like the video, please hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next video.